Hey everyone, and welcome to 121 in Flux. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we talk about movies on this show. And in this episode, we are looking at a Patreon winner. Every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, we put up 4 movies for a vote. Our patrons pick one, and here we are. This is what we do. We talk about it. The winner was Blue Steel, which is directed by Kathryn Bigelow. This came out in 1990. Usually the vote has a theme. The theme for this particular month was movies from the vault, which is another Patreon perk that we have, where people on our Patreon can submit films to a list, a to-do list, if you will, and every so often we'll pick 4 from that list and put them in. So,
yeah. Sorry, folks, bear with me. I'm a little bit ill, losing my voice, and nothing came out when I tried to speak then.
Yes,
That went worse than expected.
Cara's voice is going, so it's going to be an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
So we'll see how this goes. But yeah, so Blue Steel, I never heard of this when someone put it in the vault. Had you heard of it?
Can't say I had.
No. So this is a thriller starring Jamie Lee Curtis, and it's got. I mean, it's funny. I'm trying to think of like how to describe spoiler free because I didn't know anything about it before I watched it. Like, I literally did not know the plot. I knew she was a cop based on the title. That was all I knew.
Yeah, I think spoiler free. All I have is, she's a cop and there's an incident, and then she gets stalked essentially.
There's an incident. Something happens.
Well, yeah. I don't want to say what the incident itself is, the inciting incident. But then, as a result of that, she obtains a stalker who may or may not also want to kill her. That is, up for debate.
Stalkers often do. I mean, that's a typical stalker goal.
It's a motivation, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't know anything about this. It's funny because it's a 1990 film, which means it's right at that cusp of the 80s and the 90s, where obviously it was filmed during the 80s still, and came out at the turn of the decade, and it's kind of got this weird feel to it because of that. It reminds me of other movies just visually from that time period. One of the things that I'd say positively before I get to even asking you if you liked it or not would probably be the direction's probably one of the strongest elements of the film. It feels very confident in how it's looking pretty much all the time.
In regards to direction here, you're referring mainly to the cinematography.
Yes, I'm talking about that, yes.
Yeah, okay, no, I agree with that.
Which leads me to think that there's something about the direction that you're not too fond of. Did you enjoy it? Did you like Blue Steel?
No, it's kind of a mess. I think maybe there's a reason we hadn't heard of this one.
Do you know what's funny is I actually was quite liking it. For maybe about half the movie. Something like that.
I'll give it maybe 20 minutes.
20 minutes, yeah. I was okay with it. Like, it was kind of it took a turn that, early on, like probably about the 20-minute mark, where I was like, oh, we're going down this path now, okay. I did not see that coming, but I'll roll with it, and I was still fine with it. I think the final act is a complete mess, though, as you put it.
It got more and more unbelievable as the movie went on. It got into downright stupid territory,
which is rough in this movie particularly because it's very much
gritty realism.
It's gritty realism, but it's also because Jamie Lee Curtis's character, what's her name, Megan Turner, she's this rookie cop, and all the men in the force keep asking her, like, why did you become a cop? Why did you want to become a cop? As if that's you're a woman, why would you become a cop? It's dealing with the glass ceiling, it's dealing with sexism, it's dealing with just the misogyny she has to go through because she wants to be this profession that's not typically seen as female. And there's parts of that the work that I like, especially early on. There's a shot early on just after she's graduated where she's walking down a street and she's got this kind of strut to her, like she feels that she's achieved what she's always wanted. It was making me think of Serpico actually in a lot of ways, where she's really like idealistic when she first graduates, and then by the end of the movie she's like, I hate this. All of this is terrible and torturous.
See that, yeah.
It was giving me some of those vibes. But as the movie goes on and it gets more and more ridiculous and the motivations start to feel a bit murkier, my biggest problem with it though is probably the final kind of dramatic points of the film are really mixed up in terms of like, I'm not sure if the ending of this is supposed to be a tragedy, or if the ending of this is supposed to be a heroic, we beat the bad guy, or if the ending of this is supposed to like have some sort of more of a political statement. I'm not entirely sure. The ending's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there. Like I said, it is just a bit messy, and there's a lot of plot elements that don't make sense. But I could probably forgive that if it was more enjoyable. But each one actively kind of impacted the enjoyment of the movie until at the end all of this stacks up, and then you have the ending, and I don't know what the point was.
And it ends very suddenly as well.
It does, yeah.
There's not much of a coda or much of an epilogue or a chance to kind of reflect on what she's learned or went through. It kind of just kind of suddenly ends. It's a very downer ending. It's funny actually. I was glancing just around other opinions of this movie because I was curious. I was like, what are people saying about it? And I stumbled onto Ebert's review of all things. Ebert's, because obviously Ebert's been reviewing movies for a long time, or had been reviewing movies for a long time. And sure enough, he has a review that someone, I don't know if he wrote this originally, if it was transcribed from the TV show or whatever, but one of the things he said is how it felt kind of like an update on Halloween. And at first I was like, I know Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, but what are you talking about? And then I thought about how it ends, and I'm like, okay, I can kind of see what he's meaning here. And then it ends in a really kind of open, just kind of like she survives but nothing else kind of way.
Yeah, and I guess the way that the guy stalks her and just always seems to know where she is for no reason or logic.
The big problem I had is that the guy seems to magically be able to just kind of be in lots of places. And it's fine at first, because at first I'm like, okay, he just, because he has this kind of chance meeting with her, right? And it's supposed to look like it's just an accident, but obviously he's been waiting for her, and that's fine, right? It makes sense, because he does know she's a cop, so he can wait outside the precinct. Like, like it's not rocket science.
That's plausible enough, yeah.
But he, later on in the film, once there's reason for police to think he's a suspect of interest, and crazier and crazier things happening, he somehow manages to sneak in places or go places that feels like it should be more difficult, and it feels like it's just getting harder and harder to swallow as the movie's going on as to just what he's pulling off. I'll tell you one thing I kind of like though on a conceptual level. Execution maybe not as much, but on a conceptual level I kind of love it if you're comparing it to Halloween, and you're saying, okay, this is an evolution of Halloween. I love that we go from the shape to a yuppie. I loved it.
Okay, yeah.
The villain's a bored yuppie who's getting off on violence and stalking and whatnot. It is just, I don't know. Like, I feel like there's some sort of critique there, and I think the idea that people don't really listen to or believe her, that there's other things going on, and again the misogyny of the workforce is kind of coming into play, and we're seeing different elements of that. But by the time it gets to the end of the film, I feel like the movie almost makes her look like she's still in the wrong for doing what she's doing to survive, and I feel like that's really weird.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It really murkies at the end, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it's not. I don't hate the movie. Like, I think the movie has some positive quality. Obviously, Jamie Lee Curtis is very good.
I've got nothing bad to say about either of the main performances.
Yeah, Ron Silver, who plays Eugene Hunt, the stalker, he's kind of perfectly creepy in a Ellis from Die Hard kind of way. He's like Ellis from Die Hard became a stalker. That's, not that he's that far off, admittedly. And I did like seeing Clancy Brown, because I like Clancy Brown pop up.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah. Oh, that's what I knew him from. I was wondering what I knew Ron Silver from. He's the villain in Time Cop.
I've not seen it, but sure.
I knew his face from something, because he kept reminding me of Ellis from Die Hard. I'm like, but it's not him. It's not that actor. I can tell the difference. He had a similar look, but it's not him. And it was bugging me. But no, he was the villain in Time Cop, and I'm sure he's probably been in tons of stuff that people are going to.
I recognise his face from something. I couldn't tell you what, but I'm sure I've seen him in something.
But yeah, Time Cop's what I know him from. He was in Reversal of Fortune, Find Me Guilty. Bunch of the West Wing. Not a bunch.
That's probably what I've seen. I've seen a lot of West Wing.
Oh, fair enough. There you go.
Yeah.
Explains it. Anything else spoiler free you'd like to?
Music's not bad. It's
I like the music. It's definitely of its time, but it's just got a...
Yeah. It's there are bits of it that are better than others, but when it works, it really works.
Yeah. Even the opening title sequence is this close-up of a gun kind of revolving around, and the bullets get in the chamber, and just all the little nitty-gritty details of it.
Yeah, it is very much that late 80s grungy sort of synth kind of that you get in these, shitty city movies.
It's actually one of the things I love about 80s movies is just how dirty New York is. I love it.
Yeah.
And I know that these days it's considered one of the cleanest cities in the world, and they've done a lot of, they've put a lot of effort in.
But it wasn't.
But 80s New York is better. It has more atmosphere. It's funny actually. Me and Tim, this review won't have been up yet by the time this one goes up. But we recorded a review for Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, and we were joking about how that movie makes it even dirtier than it normally is. There's like toxic waste everywhere, and like the characters arrive in New York and they get mugged within seconds of arriving.
It's like New York needed help being grimy.
All these toxic waste. That movie would have you believe that toxic waste is flushed through the sewers every night at midnight.
I believe it. Why not?
Where's this toxic waste coming from? Is there a nuclear power plant somewhere that
Could be
in the middle of Manhattan?
Plants? Yeah, why not?
Okay,
It's got to go somewhere.
I'll just
Why
question
not
it.
flush it down the toilet?
Do you know what this episode sounds like when you sound sick? It sounds like you're dying of cancer, and this is your make-a-wish, and I'm being a good sport.
Oh Christ! If this is my make-a-wish, then life wasn't worth it.
So someone might have wished for this. You don't know.
Well, I definitely didn't. Oh. If this was my make-a-wish, just forget it. Just kill me now.
Yeah, for those of you at home, I've actually turned up Connor's mic because he's talking much quieter than normal, but hopefully in the recording that it's matching with mine.
Yeah, it's looking not bad.
Yeah, but it's a concern.
Yeah. Do you know what's really bad is this has kind of gotten worse over the day. This morning, it was just like a little bit of a tickle in the throat. It wasn't too bad.
A little bit.
And now here we are at like 1 a.m. and I'm just barely able to speak.
Oh, I'm looking forward to the thing we're doing after this. I really am.
It's going to be tough because at least this, I don't care about this movie enough to be passionate. The next thing I need passion.
You're going to be passionate in the next one. That's very true. I've been tweaking it a little bit throughout the recording just to make it just perfect. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so I guess we'll get spoilers. We'll talk about spoilers for Blue Steel, and we'll get into it. So yeah, first chunk of the movie, right? I thought that even the opening shot was quite good. I was actually thinking, well, that's maybe quite good from the opening scene because the camera starts off behind Jamie Lee's head. I kept saying Jamie Lee's head, and she's walking down this hallway and it's kind of tense, and you can tell she's got her gun out, but we don't see that. We're just seeing from the back of her head. And then she goes in a room and there's a situation and it's like a bam bam gunshot, and then it turns out it's an exercise. She's at the academy and it's been like a situation, a hostage situation kind of thing, and it sets up the theme of the thing where the idea is that she actually shoots the bad guy, but she's unaware that there's a second person who's going to kill her. The idea that in the heat of the moment she wasn't paying attention to the other details that could be important, which then happens in the big inciting incident where she's on duty with her partner, and they're just getting coffee, and sure enough there's a robbery in a small supermarket across the street, and she goes around the back alley, she goes in and she's sort of like sneaking around the aisles, and she's like, she has to work up a little bit of courage before she turns and actually goes to face him. She's kind of breathing heavily, and it was a good scene. It was well acted, it was well directed, tension was good. And she has this standoff, and the guy eventually swings a gun at her, and she shoots him like 4 or 5 times. She unloads.
Yeah.
And So at this point, one of the characters that was in there was the yuppie, right? It was Ron Silver's character, and the camera worked either impressively or unimpressively, depending on your perspective. I actually kind of like how it wasn't obvious that he was going to be a main character. I liked how he was just one of them until the main thing that he does happens.
Yeah. No, I was okay with that.
I kind of like that. So she's in shock after shooting him, and everyone is just kind of like all the customers have all been told to lie on the ground by the perp. And the gun happens to land. The guy was holding the happens to land next to Ron Silver, and he's kind of staring at it. And he just puts his hand out and he takes it in, and I immediately thought, but they're going to look for a gun. Like, he had a gun. Now, to the movie's credit, this is addressed immediately in the next scene where they're giving her shit because they couldn't find his weapon.
Yeah, it gets to the point where none of them believed that he had a gun.
Yeah, they think like, she overreacted. There was a shop
full of witnesses. Surely one of them could have gone, yeah, there was a gun.
Yeah. There's like one throwaway line where they say something like, yeah, they all agree he had a weapon, but they're all too much shock to specify. It was a gun.
But he had a weapon, so.
Yeah. And Ron Clancy or. Clancy Brown. I'm mixing the two actors up. Clancy Brown, who much younger Clancy Brown. I'm used to him from like the last 15 years, where he's a bit more older and chiseled. I know him from Lost and a bunch of other things. And he's this cop that ends up working with her over the course of the movie. He does this little sort of thing with his comb. He pulls his comb out really quickly, and she pulls out a gun and aims it at him. And he's like, "Calm down, it's a comb." And admittedly, I think my present day. Just the media and the amount of shootings we have every year of that are unwarranted. The idea that she's getting this much shit. I mean, maybe it's just back to the misogyny that she's been held to this weird high standard that all the male cops probably wouldn't be held to. The perp moved a little bit too quickly. It was justifiable. I feel like that's the attitude.
Do you know what I think part of my problem is here is that, like you say, that's something we're used to seeing now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like a decade ago, even that recently, by the standards of when this came out, that was that much of a hot topic that was talked about, right? As much. So that this, was as big a deal as they treated it. They immediately went to, well, was this a more? I feel like they were brushing it under the rug a bit more at the time.
Yeah, I can't tell you how much this was going on and how much it was public aware. I can tell you that in movies and TV shows, I feel like it always felt like it was treated as harshly as this. There was always, every time there was a shooting, you'd get the episode of a TV show where IA was coming to investigate it or whatever. So I don't necessarily think that was the truth at the time, given all the problems that we hear about now. But that was at least the way film and TV, I think, portrayed it.
That's fair.
And that seems to be holding true to that. So. That's fine. I mean, this is not a part of the movie I have a problem with necessarily, because again, it's feeding into them doubting her and her having to prove herself. I think the problem I have with the movie is that by the time we get to the end, she can't prove herself. She has to assault another police officer and steal the gun, and go and chase the bad guy and shoot him, and all of it just kind of feels like she's still going to be in trouble for this, if not more so than she would have been before.
A ridiculously extended gunfight.
Yeah, it's like an action movie shootout at the end, which just feels out of tone for the rest of the movie.
It does, yeah. It just kind of comes out of nowhere, and I don't know. There's a point where she's lying on the ground in the subway, and and it rolled over, and the train's coming, and she's got to get up in time.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, what the hell is this? And that was the start of the gunfight.
I know. We haven't talked about what the main. Well, this is the other thing. Is I even mind when it sort of shifted here, because we see Ron Silver's character with the gun, and he's kind of posing with it in the mirror. He's kind of excited by it, and we see him at his work. He works on Wall Street or whatever, and he's in the room shouting out numbers at the screens. That's what he does.
Same old same.
And Okay, it's like you've not introduced me to him much, but you're giving me just enough now where I'm kind of like backdating the motivation, and like for myself, where it feels like okay, he is bored by his life, and this is like this excitement that's kind of come into it, and he's now fetishizing the gun, and he's fetishizing the adrenaline that he felt during the incident.
I think you hit on a large part of the problem when you said that. There is you're putting that in yourself. The movie doesn't actually give you any of that.
Well, no, I think there's some of it's there. You just like it doesn't want to explain it beforehand, right? And I think to an extent that's okay. It is if it because I thought it was going to keep kind of like chipping away at him as a character over the course of the movie, and for a while I was okay with what it was doing, because what it was doing was like, you know, he's out in the street and he actually goes up to someone, some guy, some old man, and shoots him, and you know then they bring in Jamie Lee Curtis to the crime scene. She's been suspended at this point, but they have to bring her back on because whoever's doing this is carving her name into the bullet casing.
Which, problem number one here.
Mm-hmm.
He's using a revolver, right? You know, like a 6-shooter revolver.
Mm-hmm.
They don't leave bullet casings like that. They don't pop out.
That's fair.
Just, you know.
Unless he's intentionally taken it out of the chamber.
Maybe.
Because you take them out of a revolver, right? You have to empty it when you're done.
You empty it. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess he could be.
He's leaving it there as a statement.
Yeah. I don't know. It was weird. This is the point where the movie lost me.
It didn't lose me yet.
When it got to the literal, there's a bullet with your name on it, it lost me.
I was okay with that, and I'm sort of like, okay, this is a bit different from what I was expecting. But now we're into this. Okay, there's a killer going around the city, you know, killing people with her name in the bullets, and they're determined to find him. I wasn't necessarily in love with the idea of him like dating her and her not knowing who he was for a while. Like, I did feel probably the point where the movie really lost me though was when he made it really obvious who he was to her, because it came really early, I thought, you know, versus the runtime of the movie. We were like halfway through the movie, and he does this thing where he wants her to point her gun at him because he's got a fetish for it, and she's kind of weirded out by it, but it's whatever. And then he starts talking about, you know, that night in the supermarket, and he starts talking about kind of vaguely alluding to what he's been doing, and she kind of puts it together. And she takes him in, and sure enough, lawyer shows up, and it's Jenkins. What's his name? What's the actor's name? Barry Jenkins? No, Barry Jenkins.
I know the guy's face. I couldn't tell you his name.
It's going to bug me. Oh my god, what order are these credits in? IMDb.
Is it one of those terrible ones?
It seemed alright at the start. Richard Jenkins, that's the one. From Cabin in the Woods and 6 Feet Under and a bunch of other stuff. Recently in Ship of War. He comes in, he's a lawyer, and like, well, what have you got here? He vaguely alluded to something, and he just keeps denying it. And I get what it wants to do at this point, is it's like a yuppie in his position, you know, a man in his position who's well off can get away with this shit, and no one will even think twice. No one will actually think he's really doing any of it.
It's his word versus hers.
Yeah. And I appreciate that as a dramatic point. I think the problem is, though, is that I feel like the movie has turned into, and I was okay. It's okay for the inciting incident to turn the movie into a new direction, because that's kind of the point of an inciting incident, right? Is that it starts off what the main plot of the movie is going to be. I felt this moment here where he kind of, it basically lets her know who he is, and then we start this, like, you know, no one believes her and everyone believes him, and once it got to this point, I felt like the movie changed movie again. Like, I felt like it was a new inciting incident that set us on a new path.
It's too late in the movie to do that.
And well, it's fine if it's the start of Act 3, but that was not the start of Act 3. This was like the middle of Act 2. I mean, I suppose arguably it's a 4-act structure, and this is the end of Act 2 still. But
yeah, I think even Act 3, there's only to a point of how far you can change your direction here. I think even if that was, you know, the beginning of your final act, this would still bother me personally.
Him revealing everything wouldn't bother me. I think if they try to slow down the pacing and turn it into they don't believe each other kind of thing.
Yeah, no, that's the bit that bothers me. The revealing of who he is, and then that cat and mouse for the last act is fine. It's the setting up the concept of, okay, but whose word do we take, and trying to prove. You know, it goes. It's way too early to do that, or too late. Either way.
Yeah, and then we have several scenes of him showing up, and at one point he shows up and kills her best friend in front of her, and still when she says she saw it, because it's like, yeah, but he grabbed you from behind. Did you actually see his face? And it's like, at this point, there's enough of a reason to just detain him and like, I don't know, like, it feels like
just swab for gunpowder residue.
Yeah, it really did feel like the movie was ignoring a lot of like CSI elements, didn't it?
Like really basic ones. We're not asking for much.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really weird, and ultimately, like Clancy Brown's working with her at this point, and she actually handcuffs him in the car to go off and try and chase him, because they're watching out for him. They're on a stakeout, kind of off the books, and it almost gets Clancy Brown killed because Ron Silver shows up and almost shoots him, and he wants them because he's got this thing. He likes to have them looking in his eye when he shoots them. He doesn't want them looking away. But Jamie Lee Curtis comes in and saves him, and it's all fine. And he runs away because she shoots him in the arm or whatever. And this was like, I was already kind of lost because of the change in direction. Felt like a really weird pacing thing. But the big problem I had was after this scene, for multiple reasons. So Jamie Lee Curtis and Clancy Brown go back to her place, and they end up having like a romantic moment and having sex, which I felt like was out of nowhere. It felt like that came out of absolutely nowhere for me.
Oh, it definitely did.
Yeah,
I thought it was just downright borderline wrong.
Yeah, like there was one reference to him being divorced at one point, but it never felt like they were setting up a romance with them two. It just felt like, no, he's the grizzled old cop, he's jaded.
I feel like the point was supposed to be, look what we survived. But it didn't play like that at all.
So here's the thing. He has just tried to shoot another cop and has been wounded. At this point, another cop has witnessed these crimes. He is now officially like a fugitive. He is, he's wanted for arrest.
Yeah.
So they just go back to her place. And it never occurs to them that maybe, just maybe, the one place he might have gone was her apartment.
Yeah, they didn't think that, hey, there's a literal serial killer on the loose here.
Who's obsessed with you, specifically.
And knows where you live.
Right, and it's not so much that I'm saying that I blame them for not like searching the apartment when they get home. Like, I'll buy that they don't even necessarily think that he's already there, because that does seem a bit horror movie-esque.
The problem is that they just go home instead of to the police station.
They just go home, and I'm just moving my cat. They just go home, and it feels like, oh, they've had a rough night. Let's just go home and relax. It doesn't feel like there's any urgency. It doesn't feel like there's anything at stake, or that they're worried about anything. They just go home, and wouldn't you know it, the serial killer is sitting in the bathroom patching up his wounds. So he eventually shoots Clancy Brown when he goes to the bathroom, and then that kind of leads into the actual final act of the movie, where Jamie Lee Curtis has to actually assault another police officer, steal his uniform and gun, and goes to hunt Ron Silver down, and that leads into this 25 minutes. It's not 25 minutes, it's like 15, but this long shooting back and forth scene, this action sequence through the streets where there's people running in terror because there's two people having a gunfight. And like, I mean, sure, she does yell out, everyone get down, or whatever, but it's like, this is still woefully just kind of
I did laugh at that when she's coming out of the subway and just like, all right, police, everyone down. And the front, like, say there's like 5 rows of people, the front like 2 get down and start scrambling, and everyone else just carries on walking like normal, like nothing's going on.
It feels so out of tone for the movie. And at this point, she's she's lost her best friend. The one cop that she ended up apparently having a romance with is on a hospital bed dying.
Yeah. She's been shot in the arm.
She's been shot in the arm. She had to assault another police officer when she was specifically ordered, that she's, to rest and not be part of the case anymore, for obvious reasons. And she's going all Wild West. Like, I feel like the end of this movie, it's like it stops feeling like it's trying to actually feel. Obviously, movies don't have to be completely realistic, right? But there's
They've
this
got to
feel.
be consistent in their own tone.
Yeah, but this feels like it turns into a dumb action movie for the ending where. But at the same time, I would say that I'd argue the tone almost doesn't change enough, because the tone at the end still feels kind of like somber and kind of,
it still plays it really tense when she's going up round the corner.
Yeah, but the final beat still feels like it belongs to the rest of the film, but it's after this big action shootout, and I'm like, the movie feels like it's telling me she did the wrong thing by doing this, but at the same time, she had to like conquer her demon or whatever.
And she stopped a serial killer.
And she did stop a serial killer, but it feels like she's like went off the deep end to do it, but not in the way that like, because sometimes you watch like other thrillers where they're trying to catch a serial killer and it does a lot to the cop who's hunting them, right? And they go,
it ruins them, yeah.
Yeah, right. At the end of this movie, she's like Brad Pitt at the end of Seven, but and don't worry, it's horrible. I mean, we didn't even, we glossed over the fact that after he shoots Clancy Brown, he pins her down in the bed and rapes her. Like, it gets super exploitive, and it got to this point where during that scene where I was like, I was actually kind of sitting thinking about it and going, I'm actually surprised Kathryn Bigelow directed this. This is weird.
Me too. Yeah, I was just like, this feels incredibly sexist, right? Because
that scene did, yeah, but the whole final 25-30 minutes did. It really did.
Yeah, but this did not need a rape revenge plot on top of everything else.
No, because she was already trying to prove herself. It was a more grounded, like,
it already had this, horrific rape angle in the sense that she never really knew who he was when they were together.
Yeah, he'd already kind of violated her space and her trust.
Yeah, there was already that there. It was already incredibly personal for her.
And creepy and arguably more effective because it was less shock value and more, I don't know, I don't want to say grounded because it's still pretty like movie over the top, but
yeah.
This felt like shock value. I felt like there was no need to take it this far. And I guess like if you're trying to read like what the message of the film is it's the idea that this guy, okay, he's dead at the end, but he ultimately has completely ruined her. He's gotten his complete way. No one could stop him until he completely taken everything from her. Her friends, her loved ones, everyone. He almost kills her. He's threatening her parents at one point. Like, and her dad's an asshole. Like, like her dad. There's a whole subplot where her dad like beats up her mum, and that felt kind of undercooked to me.
And then she tries to arrest him.
And at the time she's not really got the authority to do that, to be honest. At that point in the movie she's already kind of like suspended and no one's listening to her, and I immediately thought, well, they keep saying you don't have enough evidence for the guy who's like shooting people. Like, I feel like you go in with your dad for domestic abuse, they're not really going to listen to you. She has one conversation in the car with them and kind of gives him a like, well, if it happens one more time I'm going to take you in. And that felt really, because
presumably this has been happening most of her life.
As much as like she's overreacting from an official point of view in terms of just grabbing him and arresting him, because it's like none of this is sanctioned. This is completely just off book. It feels unbelievable to me that she gave up on doing it so easily afterwards.
No, that's the thing. I think if she's leapt to arresting him, this is clearly not the first time it's happened, right? Because you wouldn't leap straight to that. It feels more like, no, this has been going on a long time, through maybe most of her life, and now as a cop she feels like she has the authority to do something about it, even though really she doesn't right at this moment.
Yeah.
And then he goes, "Oh, sorry."
And you can also read it as like she's been feeling weaker and weaker throughout the film because of how she's been putting down on her job. That she needs to feel strong for a moment, and this is a smaller problem she can solve. This is something she can tackle. That she feels, because arguably maybe her entire quest to do this her whole life has been about becoming strong enough to tackle like the awful man that her father was. If you want to get deep with the analysis, but it just like it feels like she just turns around and gives up like immediately, and I don't know, it felt really weird for her to just go, because she sort of smiles and goes, okay, like maybe you're better than I thought you were, but it happens one more time. And it felt like, yeah, it happens one more time. Like you say that to someone who's stolen a DVD player, so I don't know. Like, this is way more personal and kind of dark that I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I feel because the correct thing to do in this scene would be to convince her mother probably to leave and go somewhere else. or kick him out. Whatever one seems doable, right? Separate them for safety, and then deal with the actual law side of things later. But she's not thinking straight, and that's the point. Like, I'm not necessarily critiquing even the concept of any of this. It's just that it feels kind of like rushed and undercooked, and compared to everything else in the film.
Yeah, it is frustrating. There's a lot of problems with this movie.
Yeah. So yeah, the last 30 minutes just feels like it goes off the deep end. It almost feels like Kathryn Bigelow wanted to make a film about misogyny. In the police force, maybe specifically, but certainly in general. And the first half of the movie is kind of about that, and then it's almost like the studio executive said, yes, but we're going to release this as a major motion picture. You have to turn it into a generic thriller for the last half. It has to have the horror and the suspense and
the big set piece,
the big shock value moments. Like, it has to have those. And I would be genuinely curious to hear if she actually wanted a lot of what happened in the back half of this, or what her read is on it, because I'm not sure.
Yeah, like I said, well, neither of us even knew what this movie was, let alone what her opinions are on it, this many years later.
Yeah, so it's a weird one. It's a weird one. There's definitely, I like how it looks, and I like how it feels for at least the early parts of the film.
I agree with that.
There's some shots where they're in a helicopter flying over. When he's taking her out on a date, he takes her on a helicopter, and there's some nice atmospheric, just sort of cityscape shots that feel really nice.
Yeah, the cinematography is good. It's the script's just a mess, I think.
Yeah, because Jamie Lee Curtis is good.
Yeah.
I mean, all the principal players are actually pretty good, but I mean, she obviously is the one carrying it.
Yeah, of course.
It does quite well. It's actually kind of funny. I was thinking about this, is that just afterwards when I was hearing the comparisons to Halloween, I was like, yeah, this was only 12 years after Halloween. Like, I feel like the 70s feels so much older in my mind, but it's not actually that far.
Yeah, especially since that was quite late 70s as well.
Yeah, 78. So let's say she was like 18, 20 when she filmed Halloween. She's only, like 33, 34, something like that.
Tops, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, it was just a few years before True Lies, which is what comes to mind if I'm thinking about early 90s Jamie Lee Curtis movies.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, so
a bit of a disappointment, this one, though, wasn't it?
I think it's disappointing because you could see the potential, and you could see the talent.
That's it. It's seeing who's involved, and you see that opening couple of scenes, and you go, okay, I feel like I'm in for something here, and then it just devolves into stupidity.
It goes off the rails. It somehow goes off the rails, but in a really sort of generic way. Like
it's quite mundane, isn't it?
It doesn't get like super crazy in like a sort of, I don't know, like a wacky way, but it feels.
Yeah, it's not a Nicolas Cage movie.
But it feels crazy in the sense that it feels so jaded to what the rest of the film was.
Yeah.
And it does it a couple of times, although the first time I was fine with, because again, it was the inciting incident. It was kind of like, okay, this is what the movie's become, that's fine, that's what we're doing. And I was shocked that she learned what was going on so early. I thought we were going to spend like the whole second act with him, secretively doing things around her and her not knowing. But no.
Yeah, I don't really get the motivation for the villain. I think you're kind of adding stuff to what you felt, but I couldn't possibly buy that one incident caused this guy to just snap and become a serial killer like this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you would just assume that it's not one incident. He's been feeling a bit on edge for some time, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe the movie could have done a better job of giving me some of that.
Yeah, probably, but hey ho. That is Blue Steel. So hopefully next movie we do. I have no idea what is next, but hopefully whatever's next. Actually, I think I do know what's next, because. Oh wait, no, it's not a Patreon pick next because we've got another one to tick off, I believe. But we'll see. We'll see what's coming next. But that's been Blue Steel. So I suppose we should rate it before we get to the outro and the plugs and everything else.
Four. I'm torn between like a 3.5 and a 4. I'll be generous and give it the 4. I'll assume that at least some of my negativity is due to being ill, and I'm just in a bad mood.
I will give it. I'm gonna give it a 5, and it's mainly the technical qualities and the actors that are kind of are dragging it up to that point, because it does have a good look and sound to it. It really does, and that is a lot of a film. So I was never looking at it going, this is unpleasant to watch on any kind of technical level.
On a visual level.
Yeah. So, 5 out of 10 for me. So that's Blue Steel. You can let us know what you think of the movie if you've seen it in the comments. You can subscribe, all that stuff. You can get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the show and the channel and everything we do here, you can head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. We can support us for as little as $1 per month, and you can get bonuses. You get 121 extra, which swaps with Almost Cancelled extra. You get a bonus episode of Screams After Midnight, our horror movie podcast. You get a bonus episode of our new sci-fi movie podcast, The Ace, the Atomic Cinema Experiment. So that's all at the $1 tier, and then there's voting and things like that you get at the higher tiers. But you go have a look and see what's there. But yeah, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, guys, and if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.